Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here coming at you from the Knife Center, and welcome to Knife AQ number 96, the knife series, where I answer all your questions whether they're sharp or dull. And this week, amongst other topics, we're asking the question, have you ever done anything dumb with a knife? Alright folks, here's the deal. For this series, we comb through our comments section and pull out some good questions to feature. So, if you want a chance to have yours answered on a future episode, leave it in the comments below this video. With that being said, first question here comes from Donald Casey. This may be the most stupid question of the day, but if someone did something stupid with a knife and ruined the heat treatment, like dropping in a campfire or sharpening on a high-speed grinding wheel, can it be reset, or is it just destined for the recycling bin? Most likely, the blade's done. So I guess theoretically, I'll show a knife right here, the LT Wright Bushcrafter HC. If you were to sharpen this on a high-speed belt, you'd be able to see, actually this would be a better example if this were a satin finish blade, a non-patinaed blade, but you'd be able to see where the edge, or steel behind the edge would get black and all that. Theoretically, you could, if you're going slow enough so as to not make things worse at the time, remove the offending portions and modify the blade into something useful again. But you're not really going to be able to take it back to original state, so to speak. And there's a few reasons why. For one reason, especially when you're dealing things with thinner blades in general, when you go, let's say, use this as an example. To heat treat this blade, you'd have to knock the handle scales off and anneal it, go through the whole series again. However, if blades are too thin when they're heat treated, you're going to introduce some warpage. So most blades, especially handmade ones like this, they aren't ground down to their final dimensions until after heat treating. There might be some preliminary pre-heat treat grinding going on, but they only go so far because they want to be able to have a nice straight blade on the other side of the heat treating process. The other thing that happens when you heat treat a blade is you're going to have some, for lack of a better term, we can say artifacts on the outside portion of the blade itself, some carbonizing, so to speak. All that tends to be stripped away before being integrated into the final product. So if you got a folder, definitely not, because you're going to have to remove that. The tolerances are going to change and it's not going to fit back into your folder the same way. If you drop your folder in the fire, you're not going to have the same handles really to put them back into regardless. So those are reasons why it wouldn't work great. My only exposure to something like this happening happens to be from the fine folks at LT Wright. They had a customer and he had a knife, I believe it was one of their large workhorse models, and unfortunately his house burned down. And going through the rubble, however, he found the knife. The scales, handle scales on them were burnt up and kind of unusable, but he found a fairly intact looking knife blade in the rubble and sent it back to LT. I think even just as an offering, like, here, check this out. They rehabbed that knife. They annealed it best they could, reheat treated it, put some new scales on it. So it wasn't quite the same knife. It had the heart of the same knife. One could say it is the same knife, but you know what I mean. It's not identical to what he had before, and they let it live on anew. Is the heat treat going to be spot on that particular knife? I don't know. I can't say for sure. It's a really darn cool story, and they didn't charge him anything for it. They said, hey, it's a warranty issue, and shipped it back to him. That's just the kind of folks that LT Wright and the crew are. So cool story. But on the subject of doing something stupid with knives, shall we share our stupidest knife stories, our personal stupidest knife mistakes we've made over the years? I invite you to do so in the comments. Mine happened with a BK21, the Becker Reinhardt Kukri. And I was showing off, like flipping it around, like back and forth. I was like, hey, isn't this cool, sort of thing? Well, I lost my grip on it, and instinctively I went out to grab it as it was falling. And as a result, I got this nice severing right here, right around the knuckle, on the underside of my knuckle on my index finger. Actually, this finger's seen quite a few bit of scars over the years. I got really lucky. I didn't lose any range of motion or feeling in the tip of my finger, but man, that was scary. And that's why you don't play with knives. So that's probably my stupidest knife mistake. Sound off in the comments. I'm eager to hear this. Maybe we'll be able to feature some of the fun ones in a future episode. So, sound off. All right, next question comes from We're All One. I prefer the Crossbar Lock or something similar with a blade that has a flipper tab. For some reason, this is a really rare combo, and I'm perplexed as to why. Easy and easy. So few knives to choose from with that set of combination of features. The reason for that is it's trickier to do well than you might think. Benchmade, for example, they came out with a number of years ago the 300, Model 300. It was their first axis lock flipper, and it wasn't that well received, primarily based, I think anyway, on its flipping action. It was kind of weak feeling, shall we say? And the reason for that, and I'll hold up one company who I think is doing it well, and that is SOG, with their Terminus XR amongst other models here. The way most flippers get their snappy action is from the detents on the lock bars or some other portion of the handle underneath. With a crossbar lock, you're primarily dealing with spring tension and the lock bar itself to create the detent. So there's more to it than goes into a frame lock or a liner lock flipper. And as such, even as good as this Terminus XR is, and it is pretty darn good for a flipper, it's never quite gonna equal the satisfaction of the best non-crossbar lock flippers. Take, for example, this Kaiser Mini Sheepdog KnifeCenter exclusive with a 4V blade, very cool. The flipping action on this particular example especially is superb, and you can hear it. You can hear just how the word I keep using is crispy. The action here is. Check out. We'll go silent here real quick. You can feel that detent break like a nice shotgun or something. It's just you load up the pressure in your finger, and it just pew. There's a little more range of motion you have to engage the crossbar lock flipper on this SOG with, and it has kind of a softer feel because you're not able, even amongst the best right here, you're not able to kind of set up that crisp release that you can get with a liner or a frame lock. That's kind of why you don't see more. I am pleased to see SOG doing a good job with it, however, and I think they're the only ones who have done a good job with a crossbar locking flipper up to this point. There's a reason Benchmade kind of abandoned the idea. So check those out. Hope that helps. Next question comes from Steve Wealthy. I'm looking for a chef's knife for under $100, but wealthy? It's wealthy.
Well, maybe he's wealthy because he didn't spend all his money.
Maybe he's, well, good point. Good point. But maybe he's rich on the inside.
Delicious.
I didn't say juicy. Kind of like those rich, anyway. Steve Wealthy says, I'm looking for a chef's knife for under $100 and maybe one for under $200. So basically the same question, but at different price points, preferably with good edge retention because I hate sharpening. Sure thing. So there's there's plenty of good knives in that price range, and I'm pleased to see you're willing to spend some money. Even $100 on a chef knife is more than 99.9% of the world ever will spend on a good kitchen knife. So you're already on the right track, I would say. But when it comes to edge retention per se, the kitchen knife market is almost criminally underserved with better performing steels than the base stuff. Reason for that being 99.9% of the world isn't going to care or appreciate or be able to really maintain those knives properly. But there are a few options in the price range we're going to look at. And to kind of illustrate my point about performance steels, check out this Mercer Zoom chef's knife right here. It's a very good knife. It's got a great design, decently affordable price, $58.95 right now. But the steel is listed right here. X50 CRMOV 15, which is pretty much the same stuff that Wusthof and Henkel's use. And the majority of kitchen knives out there are going to be this or stuff similar. It's stainless. It has decent toughness for what it is, but it's not going to hold an edge that long. For most folks, it's probably fine. If you're looking for some more like performance steel upgrades, kind of limited. You're going to see some stuff like, probably the most common ones you'll see is stuff like VG10 is a decent performance upgrade. You see it a lot more on Japanese style chef knives as opposed to Western style or German style chef knives. In fact, the Shun Sora series we have featured, you can get the Santoku and chef knives in that series for under $100. But here's another option. It's a pretty new one that I haven't been able to test one of these personally, but I'm pretty intrigued by this knife. It is the Shin Cutlery Shin Cross chef knife. It's a subsidiary of Best Tech Knives, and it's a $99 knife in this case. You've got G10 handles, which, you know, for the knife nut in your family, or if it's you yourself, that's kind of a cool thing. And the reason I'm intrigued is this is a powder metal blade. I don't know what specific formulation of steel they're using, but they do make a point to say that it is a powder steel blade, and it is hardened to a Rockwell rating. It says right here on the blade, 62 plus or minus 1, so 61 to 63 Rockwell. That does say something about the performance that they expect this, or the uses that this could stand up to, because if they made something too chippy, they're gonna have to warranty a lot of stuff. So again, I wish we knew exactly what it was, but there's something intriguing about that set of features at this price. Blade, like I said, about 8.3 inches. It's got kind of a hybrid shape in a way. It's not quite a Santoku, not quite a Western style chef's knife, but the handle feels very good. There's nice ergonomic touches. You got a nice pinch point with the thumb scallops here, which is how you should be holding a chef knife anyway. It could be very, very interesting. It even comes with a leather mask, essentially, so you can throw that. Actually, I wouldn't throw that willy-nilly into a box because it's not, you know, secure, or it's not secured inside the sheath, but this could help it protect it if you were the type to put a knife in a drawer or take it camping, that sort of thing. But this, or that Shun Sora, as mentioned, could be a good choice under $100 if you're looking for edge retention specifically, like if that's the primary driver of what you are seeking. If you go more premium, you can kind of, I've got two different options here that take different paths, so to speak. One is more of a workhorse, and one is more of a show pony, shall we say. The first is the KnifeCenter K1, a VG10 core bladed chef's knife. $169.95 for this. 8-inch blade, VG10 core, like I mentioned. Actually, I think the cladding is still VG10 on these. I can't remember, actually. But this is a laminated steel blade. You have a sandwich of 3 layers of steel, and the center layer where your edge actually sits is that VG10. The other cool thing about this is it is a full height convex grind. Slightly different from most full flat ground kitchen knives you might be used to. The feel could be a tiny bit different, but it's not so obtuse that it's going to be wildly different. You're still dealing with a fairly thin blade here. That convex geometry might be a little bit stronger than if it were full flat ground. And the design on this I really like. You've got a overmolded handle. The balance is pretty good, just slightly blade heavy, which I prefer that to being slightly handle heavy. Slightly blade heavy is going to be a little more manageable, I think. And it has a really good rock on the cutting board, which is something I tend to prefer. I don't like something that when you come down with the heel when you're mincing is going to clunk really clunkily or kludgily. This definitely does not have that clunk. And it's a great do-it-all chef knife blade shape right there. If you want something a little fancier, more premium looking to kind of quote-unquote justify the higher price point, check out another knife from Shin right here. And this is called the Shin Craft chef's knife as opposed to Shin Cross from earlier. This is a $198 knife, and like the KnifeCenter, we have a VG10 core, but we have Damascus outer cladding. So you got a little bit of a fancier look there, but not too aggressively darkened. It's a little more subtle, but just a hint of flash. Because we gotta let the handles shine here. Rosewood handles with buffalo horn fronts and backs. What's the word for those? Someone who's more familiar with Japanese knife handle construction is going to let me know, but I'm going to call them bolsters here for the time being. I know there's a specific Japanese name for those, but it is escaping me at the moment. Apologies all around. Really nice looking handle, really nice looking blade. The blade shape here is not quite a santoku, but it is easily replaceable, or can easily take the place of your primary chef's knife. It's maybe a little bit more Kuritsuke inspired than santoku, but like the Feldkniven, this knife also has a good landing on the cutting board. It doesn't clunk down, and this is actually a very agile knife. 8-inch blade, fairly lightweight. It's going to move with you rather nicely. I would be a little more careful about the things I cut through. Like I wouldn't want to send this through the joint of a chicken bone joints, that sort of thing. I might worry, because this is more specialized for those fine, delicate cutting. Whereas I think the Feldkniven here has a little bit more armor or something, so to speak. Might stand up a little bit better to that sort of thing. But you're going for edge retention. So the VG10 options here are kind of what you're going to get in the price range you're talking about. If you want something that can go through chicken bones, stick with the the X50, the stuff we just looked at. Or you can go higher. There's some S35 VN kitchen knife offerings, but not in the price range. And hopefully we're going to see more in the near future, but criminally underserved, gotta say.
Long enough timeline, we'll see some MagnaCut kitchen knives.
I think we saw some at some customs at Blade Show this past year.
Those are customs.
Yeah. The production line, yeah. Because that is the thing, and this is the route I wound up going myself. Is I have custom kitchen knives made that I've bought some from makers at shows. I've also commissioned a couple. You folks have seen it before on this channel. My favorite knife, probably my favorite knife I own of any genre, full stop, is my Big Chris cook's knife in 10V steel. Fantastic knife. I love that thing. And that has got a ton of edge retention, let me tell you. All right.
Lightning round.
Now we come to the lightning round. Carlos Andres Ramirez Ragoza says, hey David, talking about steels for small 5th pocket knives, would you choose between D2, 154cm, or N690? Keep in mind that I want to know your choice and also the regular tasks I have, which is to open boxes, food prep, cutting small pieces of wood to start a fire, cutting rope, and common simple materials. Thanks in advance. This is a thing where I wouldn't really focus on the steels in this case. I would focus on the knife design that appeals to you. Between the N690 and the 154cm, they're not identical. They're so close, however, that use case wise, I would apply them to the same things. One steel wouldn't make me choose a knife over the other between those two. The only one I might put a word of caution in about maybe is D2, especially something that's going to live close to your skin. And if you live in a very humid environment, you might deal with a little bit of patina or corrosion for that style of knife. And if you're unfamiliar with that style of knife, we did a whole video on this. We'll leave a link to it up there. That little 5th pocket, the watch pocket in a pair of jeans, can be a real nice place to stash a nice small knife. But this is one of those things where I get to kind of gleefully say, steel doesn't matter. Take the design that appeals to you in that size format, and have fun with it. This is supposed to be a quick question, a lightning round question. D2 with its ability to take a nice toothy edge might be better on stuff like rope, but stuff like wood sometimes likes a finer polished edge. Anyway, next lightning round question, Michael Varlata. Hey DCA, what is one knife locking mechanism that gets you the most excited? Whether that be because of its fidgeability, strength, design, craziness, etc. I'm all about a crossbar lock. Don't take what I said earlier about them not being necessarily a great platform for flippers as any kind of disrespect, because I'm a big fan. I love the ease of use. Some may say fidgetability. I say speed and convenience of use, because I'm so used to this by now, and it's so quick to be able to do that gravity thing and let it do its job. Pretty much if there's any knife coming out with a crossbar lock, I'm paying attention. Benchmays aren't the only ones anymore that have this lock since the patent expired, and we're seeing a lot of companies come out with their versions, including Kaiser with their drop bear right here. And this knife is quickly, or their iteration of the lock has quickly risen to one of the top contenders in the genre for me. The other, of course, as folks have heard me say before, being Hogue. So I had to buy this drop bear. First time I've bought, for my personal collection, a Chinese knife in a long time, actually. It's that compelling. Anyway, now we come to our last question of the day, our most serious question of the day, which comes from Jasper EDC. What 2 knives would you choose to arm an army of squirrels? Well, I only got 1 knife.
They can share.
They could get 2 of them. Wouldn't it be the steel will nutcracker, after all? Seems to be what they'd need to be doing anyway. Plus, it's just a cool knife. You know what I like about this table, Thomas?
I'm worried.
Not a single reverse tanto on it. And no, you can't say this is a reverse tanto.
I'm literally looking at that one.
That's more of a K-tip, as in the Kuritz K style. Sorry, buddy. You'll just have to wait till next episode. That's all we have for this episode, after all. If you want a chance to have one of your questions featured, just leave it in the comments below and might get picked for a future episode. If you want to get your hands on any of these knives, check out the links in the description. They'll take you over to KnifeCenter.com. And don't forget about our Knife Rewards program, so that if you're putting your money down on one of these knives today, you'll get to earn some free money to spend on your next ones. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center. That's Thomas behind the camera. We're signing off. See you next time.